So, you know, when we look at some of the things that I do and my colleagues do as helping make things better for our country, you know, we kind of look back to the founding of our country, and part of what the foundation of our society was based on improving culture, improving the quality of life. And we do that through the arts with so many ways. You know, one of my favorite quotes when I think through this is from John Adams, one of the founding fathers, talking about that he studies war and politics so that his children can study mathematics and philosophy, and their children can study poetry and painting and music. And that's kind of indicative of how our country's grown and how we as a society tend to look at, or should look at how we move forward. You know, John Adams understood that freedom to do the things that we wanted to in society also meant that we had the opportunity that future generations could live in peace and be able to have a prosperous society. And those are kind of the same standards that we want to live up to today, that we want to work for and move forward. As Jim mentioned, last week I hosted our congressional art competition in our district. And for those of you that aren't familiar with that process, each year every congressman and woman across the country has an opportunity to pull in high school students from their district and have a competition to present an art exhibit, which is then the winner is displayed in the Capitol building for the next year. And it's a wonderful thing to go through. I've been in office now 2 years, and going through that cycle, the last 2 cycles that we've been able to do that, it's just a great event to see the talent of all of these young students. I probably am additionally amazed because my background's as an engineer. So it's more of, I don't necessarily have an artistic bone in my body other than I know what I like. And so I'm just amazed at the things that they can do and how dramatic they can present their arts and their skill. Last week we had 209 different exhibits from 169 different students from 12 different high schools across my district. And what we've done, both of the 2 years that we've done this, is we partner up with Mark on the Arts, which in Wichita is a new facility that's actually just opened a year and a half ago. I was able to be at the grand opening ceremony, but it's actually a full-fledged art museum. But they also, as they built it, they said, how do we do more than just have a presentation, have a description or an opportunity for people to display their skills, but they actually have classes that they conduct and provide for the community, and they do it in a variety of things, from pottery to art to actually even have a cooking room that they actually go through that process as well. So it's actually a tremendous facility that's operated there in Wichita. The whole process has been a great success. It's great that we partner with, well, Southwest Airlines partners with the Congressional Art Commission, so that the winning student from each district can come up and see their exhibit displayed here. So it's really a kind of a way to connect them from the district. I see Susan nodding her head over there, so I know you went through that same thing.
Those numbers though, Congressman.
Oh wow, yeah. Yeah, so it's a great thing. There's really some phenomenal students, and particularly I'm kind of lucky because there's some great instructors at the high school level in our district that really put that forward. It just reminds me over and over again about the creativity and innovation in our society and how we need to continue to push through that. One of the things that I've talked a lot about as I've been in office is how do we make sure that intellectual property rights are maintained from a standpoint of, as we look within the country, but also so many of the trade agreements. I'm on the Ways and Means Committee, which trade's one of those areas of responsibility that we have in the committee, and looking at how do we make sure that we protect the innovation, the thought process, the hard work that people have gone through in developing and showcasing their skills whether that deals with, you know, an artistic endeavor, whether it deals with technology, whether it deals with, you know, a new car, a Facebook, or, you know, any of those endeavors that actually help society move forward. There's so much similarities in terms of how do we protect that intellectual property. You know, last year, one of the things I was involved in as helping was pass the Music Modernization Act, which was intended to help make sure that artists and that services like you know, Spotify were able to make sure that people were paid for the work that they've done, that their creativity and what they've developed. And so in December, we were able to celebrate the signing of the bill, and actually I was able to go down at the new Washington headquarters for the Grammys and participated in a ribbon cutting to signify the opening of the new facility. I was down there with then Minority Leader Steny Hoyer and Debbie Wasserman Schultz, and so that kind of just showcases that it's something that Republicans and Democrats can work together on in terms of looking at how do we make our society better. One of the things talking about too is as we look at how do we make our economy grow, how do we make more opportunities. You know, it's estimated that 70% of the jobs in 2030 don't exist today. So when we look at what kind of new opportunities people can have in any endeavor, in any way, we need to make sure that we allow for that creativity, allow for the innovation to take hold and to move forward, and looking at how do we make that growth and the future of our country. Agencies, you know, like the Institute for the Museum and Library Sciences and the National Endowment for the Arts, play a vital role as part of our country in terms of how do we make sure that that creativities continue to move forward and supported. And there's all sorts of different ways to support, you know, how we support our creativity. We want to make sure that we provide not just funding at the federal level, but also incentives for private individuals to participate and be engaged, as they have been throughout history, really, of the world. So I want to make sure that we work together and we can find common ground to help make our society move forward, make sure that we continue to leverage that opportunity that so many of us have to use our creativity in any fashion to help make society better. So I think, were there a couple minutes if there were questions for me, Jim, if that was on the agenda, or you want me to move forward with that?
Any questions from this esteemed group?
So that's the thing, is we don't know. And when you look back now, you look at how many companies. So the question was, what are the jobs going to be, you know, in 2030? You know, when we look at even the last 10 years, look at things like what the internet's done in the last, well, maybe go back 20 years. But travel agency jobs. I mean, that's one of the first things that I go back to and look at how that's changed from 20 years ago. Of course, I'm aging myself, you know, in terms of using a travel agent for some of the travel. But now we go online and do that. You know, a cell phone like this, there's more power, computing power, in this cell phone than was in the Apollo 11 rocket going to the moon. And so you look at all the things that we can do today, and the ability for folks to actually look at, you know, how do you sell homes? You know, how do you look at selling cars even from this standpoint, and just the ability to develop those applications, some of the development aspects, some of the things that we can use with that technology. But then when you look at other things across the industries, how are we going to get our power? I mean, from an energy standpoint, I was one of the trips we were on down to Houston that you mentioned earlier, Jim. We were looking at a company that's actually looking at ways to, instead of having to worry about the carbon dioxide that's created out of electric generation using a gas-fired plant, is have the input, instead of being air, be pure oxygen, which then makes the carbon dioxide coming out cleaner, which they can then use to actually use in the oil and gas industry to pump into the ground. So you actually solve two problems at once, going through that process of treating the electricity and being able to put carbon dioxide into the ground to help with additional gas recovery. So those are types of things that people look at from an innovation standpoint.
Anything else from anyone?
Good. Go ahead. All right. Well, thank you. So I also have the honor of making the next introduction. And I was shocked a little bit, you know, on the things on the page when I looked here, is that, you know, they have the wrong show that, you know, Tim Daly's famous for on this sheet. So, you know, of course I'm aging myself again, but, you know, Wings was a show that I grew up in. And I don't know if that's a faux pas for an actor to talk about an old show as opposed to the current one, but obviously it shows the breadth of range that he has as skill. And, actually, you know, Monk, you know, another show that, you know, he played in just so many different things. And it's great to have somebody who's a veteran of our creative community and done so much as an actor and producer and director and utilize his skills and ability, his platform to help promote the arts and create the Creative Commission and so much work that he's done here. So without ado, I'd like to turn it over to the president of the Creative Coalition, Tim Daly.
Hi everybody. Do I have salad in my teeth? Just asking. Okay, I'm going to quickly run through our delegation so you know who's here. We have me, President of Creative Coalition, from Madam Secretary, Wendi McLendon-Covey from the Goldbergs, Ethan Cutkowsky, say your name for me. Cutkowsky from Shameless, Steve Howey from Shameless, Caterina Scorsone from Grey's Anatomy and Private Practice with me, by the way, for 5 years. Anthony Carrigan from Barry, Anthony Rapp from Star Trek Discovery, CCH Pounder from NCIS New Orleans, Dean Norris from Breaking Bad and The Act, Shiri Appleby from Unreal, Harry Hamlin from Mad Men, Sam Daly, who happens to be my son, who's been on Madam Secretary and The Magicians and some upcoming stuff, Lindsay Goffman, who's the executive producer of The Good Doctor, Meryl Poster, who's an Emmy Award-nominated producer of Girlfriend's Guide to Divorce, Project One Way Discovery, among many other things, Lori Gordon, who is the Vice President of Human Resources at Cardinal Health, Jacqueline Barnett, Esquire, founder of the law offices of Jacqueline Barnett, and she's been on The Talk as a personality. Dr. Ryan Hungate, founder and CEO of Simplify. Meredith Perry, founder of UBeam. John Levy, founder of The Influencers. Robert Wong, executive creative director at Google. And David Block, Esquire, and Jackson Lewis. So let's give them a hand. Those are the good people. So, quickly, for those of you who don't know, the Creative Coalition is a group of prominent members of the arts and entertainment community and now other communities, titans of industry and innovation and design, who feel it's our obligation to educate and inspire our audiences to mobilize around issues of public importance, especially arts advocacy and public arts education, among many other things which I could talk about, but ask your table mates. It's our belief that it's our mission to protect, defend, and promote the arts in the United States. And I want to be very clear that we don't work only for artists. We are promoting arts as a basic human right. We believe that every child should be exposed to and participate in the arts, not so that they can become professional artists, but because we know for a fact that it will enrich their lives. It will make them more empathetic, more compassionate, more interesting, more imaginative, more creative, and more productive human beings. Thank you. You know, it's interesting because there's so many things going on right now, and the question would be, why now? Why support arts now? And I'm going to tell you why. Because there is no more powerful change agent available to mankind. The ways that arts can influence people in positive ways is extraordinary. From the work that is being done with veterans with PTSD, to people with emotional disabilities, to the prison communities. And I'm going to give you, I don't often do this, but I'm going to tell you a little bit about my own story and how the arts have helped me. So I was watching, I think, ESPN or something one day, and there was an athlete, and this was not an unfamiliar story. The athlete was talking about how his dad left when he was a kid, and his mom was addicted to drugs, and he had this one thing that helped him get out of his bad circumstance and make something of his life. And at the age of whatever it was, 60 or something, there I was watching TV, and I suddenly thought, wait a minute, that's me. That is my story. My dad left when I was a little kid. My mom was an addict. And I didn't grow up in the inner city. I always had enough to eat. But I was in a very difficult circumstance as a child. And by the time I was in my early teens, I was a full-blown alcoholic. And I was very, very expert at hiding it. But I was a blackout drunk from the time I was a young kid. However, my freshman year in high school, I was cast in a Shakespeare play called All's Well That Ends Well. And this is also back in the day. I was also dyslexic, just not to throw. And I hesitate to tell this story because I've had so many blessings. My slice of the luck pie and the fortune pie has been so big that I don't want this to seem as though I'm whining. I'm just telling this because it's what happened. So I figured out that I couldn't learn the lines, and I didn't know why. But then I went to the baseball field, and I had a bucket of baseballs, and I would take the baseballs and I would throw them over home plate. And I realized that when I was moving, the lines went right into my brain. So I'm what they call a kinetic learner, and it helped me overcome to a significant degree my dyslexia, and it gave me a place that I could go to feel that I had a direction. Thomas Merton, who's a Jesuit philosopher, said, "Art enables us to find ourselves and lose ourselves at the same time." And that's exactly what happened to me. When I was doing theater, I lost myself in time. My imagination was completely captivated by this imaginary world where I was trying to figure out what other people felt like, what they were doing, what motivated them to be the way they were. And it also helped me find myself. I found myself as a human being. I found my profession, and when I eventually got lucky enough to get sober when I was quite young, my world just opened up, and every blessing that I've had since then is because of the arts. And so that is my personal story about the testament to the power of arts and how transformative they can be. So we are here today to advocate for the National Endowment for the Arts and to dispel some misconceptions about it, because a lot of people think that Hollywood people show up and they're advocating for Hollywood. They're very suspicious when you're not talking about something that's in your direct financial self-interest. We're not. We're here because, as I said, we know the arts will enrich this country. And the misconception about the NEA is that it is for Hollywood people. It's not. It's disproportionately targeted to rural areas and areas that are underserved. So the people that have been talked about so much, the people who are forgotten or who are flown over, those are the people who benefit the most from the National Endowment for the Arts. We believe in private funding, but that takes place mostly in big cities: Dallas, New York, Chicago, Miami, LA. Those places will be fine. There are a lot of people with a lot of deep pockets who will fund philharmonics and the Kennedy Center and places like that. But it's the little rural communities and the places you wouldn't think of that need this NEA money. So we're here to convince politicians and people to spread this word. So in closing, I just would like to invite all of you to help us spread this word, because arts are not about being professional artists. They're about things that are in our lives every single day. This is what I've come to learn. arts are like love. We cannot agree on a definition, but we all agree that we need it. Arts are they're like air. We are very seldom conscious of the fact that it surrounds us or that we're breathing it every few seconds, but it sustains us. And art is like food. We are not going to like everything we taste. Some of it we might think is kind of disgusting. Some of it might be absolutely delicious, but we need it because it keeps us alive. It allows us to survive. So thank you for having us. And please spread the word and spend a moment every day being conscious of the art that surrounds you and the way that you participate in art, whether it's sewing a costume for your kid's school play or listening to the radio and singing along or playing bongo drums in your basement. It is in your lives and it is important to you. I know that. So let everybody know how important it is to you as well. Thank you very much.